Hey, this is the Because Fiction podcast where I can't stop laughing at myself. Anyway, where we chat about all things Christian fiction. I'm your host, author, and insatiable reader, Shatona Having. And guys, we have with us a new to me author. I believe this might be a debut novel, but she'll fix me if I'm wrong. We have Jil Koller here. She's the author of Heart of a Bowman from the, guys, listen to this, Vertical Horizon series. I mean, come on. Anyway, and she's here to tell us all about the book. So welcome, Jill. And yeah, I need to know, first off, Vertical Horizon, where did that come from?
First of all, hello, and thank you so much, Shatona, and I'm very excited to be here. It is a debut novel, so this is my first, and the other books are coming out, so it's a trilogy, and 2 and 3 are also, they're contracted and they're coming out. The Vertical Horizon, it's a story. Do you want me to explain how I came up with the idea of the vertical world? Really?
Yes.
Okay. So I had written the story, first of all, and it was the characters and the plot pretty much as it is in a normal world. And then I started to world build. And once I started world building, I guess I just didn't stop, really. Like, I tried to think of something that would be compelling. And it really just started with the idea of these 4 countries, these nations at the time, they were more normal, being interdependent, like relying on each other. And so I thought to myself, what would up the ante on that? What would make that, to the extreme, ultimate? And so then I don't know how I did it, but I just started to think, what if the world was actually vertical instead? And what if, because of that vertical nature of the world, then each tier, which would be like a nation, a tierdom, each tier had a different biome. So you had like a tundra or an Arctic, you had a temperate, which is kind of where I live. You had a tropical, you had an arid or a desert biome. And so the 4 tiers, in terms of their agriculture, did not produce everything that they would need to survive and thrive. And then because of the rock stratification, I started to think, what if the ore that they're able to mine, they didn't have everything that they could possibly need. They had some things, but not everything, which just made them rely on each other. So then they would have to trade. And then I thought hoistments instead of shipments. So it's not really overland trading. Yeah. It's you're hoisting. And so then I just wrote into that. There's a main hoist that runs between the tiers. And there's a huge sheer cliff that backs each of the tiers as you rise up. And then the very top, the peak, would be the vertical horizon, with the idea that the sun would rise, in the north, in this world, it rises in the north, and then it would crest the peak and then set in the south. So the people that lived on one side of the vertical horizon, there's 3 tiers there, they only ever see sunrises, and they get the sun until past peak, which is noon. And then the people on the other side, which would be the desert, they're on the backside of the Spire, the big mountain. They only get the sun from past peak from noon until sunset. And so that, after all of that was formed, I honestly scribbled and wrote and drew and planned and diagrammed for quite a bit, for hours and hours, a couple of days. And then euphemisms started to come and slang started to come, and just, what would that mean for industry and what would that mean for politics? And so then it all just kind of gelled. Does that sound like a crazy person talking right there?
No, it sounds perfectly normal to me, or maybe I'm the crazy person too. Because that's exactly what my brain does. It was like, well, then what would happen if?
Right.
Or, but wait a minute, if that happens, then we can either go this way or this way, and which way of those? I mean, Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm seeing on the cover here, guys, you got to go look at this cover. It is a really cool cover. It's like giving you a grasp of what, she's talking about here. But I'm seeing like sort of like Zeppelin type machinery.
So the plot thickens, dun dun dun. Because of the hoistments, they're hoisting everything. You wouldn't be shipping things traditionally like over the ocean, or you wouldn't have caravans or something to deliver things. You're using a huge man-powered hoist, using we're talking simple machine type technology with pulleys and levers and that kind of a thing to hoist everything vertically. And in order then for there to be a pirate component, they fly lighter than aircraft, and they will rob the hoistments just right off the hoist. So anything of value that's being hoisted in trade would be subject to attack from they call them mist raiders. Another part of the world is just that because it's rising out of the endless sea, the weather blows in, especially on the realm side. So that's where the three tiers are. That's where the sun rises. So the weather blows in. That would be the windward side of the island. And the mist just blows in off the water constantly. And these pirates capitalize on that and they raid the hoistments. And to combat that or to keep that at bay, the Bowman, the King's Bowman, they spawned, and they are archers, like supreme archers, just elite soldiers. They'd be your Navy SEALs of this world, but they focus on archery because they're shooting down those lighter than aircraft. So they'd use flaming arrows or they'd use whatever means they could to protect the hoistments from the pirates.
Oh my goodness. I have to say I love the fact that you call them mist raiders. That is so good. I mean, that is a title right there, Mist Raider. I mean, come on.
Thank you.
Oh, that is just okay. The whole world here, I am completely fascinated by. And I have to say, I have a friend who his whole world is
Right.
magic systems, which is, you know, it's not, doesn't have anything to do with actual magic, guys. It's just technology we don't have. That's what they call it, magic system. Got to throw that out there. Anyway, but I can see him just completely geeking
Oh.
out on what you've done here. This is so cool. I might have to send him a copy
Please
of this
send him a
book.
copy.
It is so cool. Oh, anyway, but okay. So now that we know where we got the story and what the story is set in, what
Okay.
is this
So
story?
if you're looking at the cover, there's two main characters there. There's three, really. The three main characters that the story focuses around are Colt, Tess, and Deacon. So Colt and Tess, I just, when I started writing this, I just thought, what if you had just two fantastically formidable, equal characters in terms of their moral code, in terms of their abilities, different, of course, different, but really just in their own right exceptional. But they were potentially at odds with each other, or their duties were at odds with each other. And then they were thrown into this quest or this adventure together, this mission together. And so I just liked the idea of that. And so I wrote Tess. She is the princess of the tier of Ardenia. So that would be the temperate middle tier on the windward side of the island. And she and her sister, they descend to the tropical tier, which is called Costair, because her sister's betrothed to be married. And so this is the big engagement banquet and the gala, and she's going to be there. And when she gets there, she gets introduced by her sister as her lady's maid instead of as her sister and the other princess royal of Ardenia. And so her sister would like her to investigate her future husband and see if there's any skeletons in the closet. They are allowed to veto the marriage if they find just cause, right? And so she says, I need you to be a Bowman.
Right.
You'd be able to do that far better if you were just a maid, like a servant, and not my actual sister. You'd be far less suspicious or obvious. And so that's what she asks her to do. And that is the beginning of the story, is that you've got a princess that no one knows is the actual princess. And now she has grown up hating court, this youngest princess, Tess, and loving the King's Bowman. So she's only ever wanted to be a Bowman of the realm. And she's practiced archery in the woods, and she's a tomboy, and she's, grown up with her brothers who were trained to shoot. So she's gleaned as much as she can. But when she's down there, her sister starts to brag about the fact that women can do anything that a man can, and including combat. And so her future husband doesn't take issue with that, but thinks that he'll have some fun with that. And so he ends up asking Tess, can you think you can outshoot any man in my kingdom? And she says, yes, unless you've got a King's Bowman, I could. And he's, what if I do? And then she's like, well, I think we'd shoot a draw. And so it ends up there's a King's Bowman in Costair, which she didn't expect because they're from Ardenia, which is skyward, or it's the tier above. And so that enters our hero, Colt. And so the two of them have a shooting competition right at the gala. And then afterwards she leaves and they tie. She shoots fantastically well. And he's, of course, better. He's excellent, but she shoots extremely well. And you wouldn't know that. He calls a draw. And then she escapes from the castle just to get some fresh air, just to be out of court, out of the ceremony and the gala and all of that world, which she just has no time for. And he follows her out. And when they're outside, they're both at quite a distance in a Bowman lookout. The castle is attacked and overrun. And they're so far out, they can't do anything about it. There's only two of them, so they couldn't do anything about it anyway. But that is the real inciting incident. I mean, that would be the kickoff of the story, is these two people. He's a soldier through and through, and she's a princess in disguise. They're out there talking, arguing actually, and the castle's overrun. And they figure out that the attackers are the most seaward tier, who are the Reyjik. They're the desert tier around the back. And they're like a valued trade partner. There's been peace for 100 years. There's no reason or a suspicion that this would ever happen, and yet they've watched it happen. And it's made just a little more complicated because his mother is Reyjik. So he's grown up with mixed parentage, and he's always suffered some trouble for that. It's been harder for him to excel and to get ahead because of that. And so that makes it harder for him, but she doesn't even identify that. So she doesn't really notice that at the beginning of the story. But they then have to figure out what's gone on, and they have to get skyward to her father to warn him and to raise a counterattack. So that would be what sparks the story.
Okay. Boy. So you don't have much going on in this story, is what you're telling me.
Dull.
I'm just like, why?
And I feel it's so bad. It was only the first three chapters, and I feel like I've left so much out. There's so many other things that I could say. You feel dumb leaving out so many things, but yes, but that's the crux of.
Well, yes. You got to leave us something to read, right? Okay, guys, I have to throw this out here. Okay, this book has 37/38 ratings, depending on if you're on GoodReads or Amazon. On Amazon, it has a 5.0 star rating. It's 37 at 5.0. That is highly unusual. On GoodReads, which is usually lower, it has a 4.8, which is pretty much almost a 5. I mean, it's been out for months. When was it?
Yes.
No, December. So it came out a couple days before Christmas. So on Christmas Autumn, okay, out comes this book, and it's been here. So we're pushing on we're starting month 6 here. It's not been out 6 months yet, but by the time this releases, it will have been 6 months, guys. Anyway, it is available on Kindle Unlimited. Yes. I had to throw that out there for readers who are looking for that. It is there. But okay, now that I've got all that just dropped in your lap, it's really funny. My brain thought I was going to have trouble keeping this world on its correct axis. I thought I would keep trying to force it to go our sideways, to make it fit in. And instead, I'm actually, I don't know. I think the fact that you've got this, I don't remember what you called it now, but the thing to take stuff up and down the stratus thing with hoist. Yeah. So because you have that, I think it's keeping my brain anchored in the right direction. And I don't know if that was deliberate or if it was a byproduct, but that is brilliant.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, that's it, because I mean, it just talking on it, outside of things, it sounds like it should be hard to keep it vertical because we're so used. I mean, they even have I don't know what they're called, kind of like compass things, but in cars, where if you tilt, it levels back up and all the things, so you know exactly where the horizon always is and everything. You would think that we're so used to that we can't, but whatever you've done, I'm not picturing the world as being like ours. I am picturing this vertically, which, I mean, my brain says that means that everybody should be like leaning really strongly one direction, but it's not. That's not happening. I mean, I don't know how you did that.
Right. And so, I mean, when you're on a tier, obviously you're on flat ground, and it would be level flat ground, like as it would be for us. But instead of traveling whatever it would be, miles in one direction, northeast, west, or south, if you want to get to the next tier, you're going skyward. And I tried to use even that terminology all throughout the book consistently. They don't say up or down, they say skyward or seaward, and that's just how they think, right? You're either going towards the sky or you're going towards the sea, and if you're going to do that, you're going to have to hoist there. The lighter than aircraft, the pirates, like the mist raiders, because of mist raiding, that's been outright illegal. So they don't use lighter than aircraft for anything else legally. So if you're flying a ship, you are a criminal, like you're an outlaw, which just adds like another component to it, right? Because that kind of undermines the hoisting system and everything in terms of trade and going through the customs and the borders. If you wanted to smuggle That's what you would use. So any viable, honest business is done through the hoists as well. Anyway, the little tiny wrinkles like that, right? Like little nuances to the story just to make it feel like a
Yeah.
real world that actually exists.
Well, even the fact that the desert is on the afternoon
Hmm.
side of this world, it fits because, the most intense part of the day is, I mean, I live in the desert. When it hits noon, we're
Right.
getting miserable here. And it's, the morning isn't so bad and nighttime isn't a problem, but from about noon to about 8 p.m., especially noon to 4, but
Yes.
it's tough.
Well, even I thought about it, you go back to science class when you learn about coming in off the mountains. If you've ever been in a coastal or a mountain system, then the clouds holding all the moisture from the ocean or whatever, they blow in and they drop all their moisture as they blow up over the mountain, right? And then when they're on the leeward side, they're
Right.
dry. They don't have any moisture left, which causes the desert. So I did the same
Yep.
thing, right? So the weather comes in on the realm side, like the windward side, and then it's dropped its moisture by the time it gets over Reyjik. So little things like just to make it
Yep.
consistent. And I'm sure I miss things. I'm sure probably kids, those brilliant children that we have will point stuff out and there'll be an
Yep.
inconsistency. But so far I have an like a retired police officer who I visited a book club, and he is
Swipe.
just a wonderful person. And he was raving about it. And one of the things he kept saying was, the world is so consistent. That I think that's what I loved most about it, was just the deeper I got into the story, I kept expecting to be kind of jarred or pulled out by some inconsistency, and that didn't happen. And he said, I just loved that. And so that's a high for me. That's just such a high praise, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't yeah, I didn't I
Yep.
was hoping to get there. I didn't know if I did, but it was kind of him to say that. So
Oh, I love it. Oh, okay, okay, okay. So now, faith wise, what are we going to see in
okay.
this book?
So there is an analogy that would line up directly with the gospel. So the fallman, which would be the Christ figure, he was killed for a like sin, crime, transgression that he didn't commit. He was completely innocent, and he was punished for something that was not at all in any way his actual responsibility. And that happened from Freefall Point. So on the very top tier in Lindsor, there's this one place on the whole Spire where you could free fall right from the top to the bottom. In any other place, if you fell, you'd hit the next tier. But in this one place, there's a free drop right to the endless sea. And so when the fallman was sacrificed, he makes a full drop. And then 3 days later, all the people of the different tiers back in history, they recall the fact that a bright light rose up the free fall. And as it passed up, it paid for the transgressions of all the people on the tier. And their salvation would be then based on faith. And they refer to Gehenna is what they would call, which is the Greek
Oh,
word for hell, obviously, but that's what they would call their below the mist. So there's something called the dark mist, and underneath Reyjik, so underneath the bottom tier, just a few hundred yards down, there's a permanent mist that they can't see through, and that they're not allowed the sacreds, which would be their Bible. The sacreds forbids them from traveling under, so they've never explored it. That's Gehenna. So underneath the dark mist would be Gehenna. So that's the faith. That would be the faith analogy, would line up very closely to ours in many ways, like with that of the Bible. The sacreds would be their book, and the Bowmen operate on the codes of chivalry of old, kind of. So they've written the Bowman code, same thing, based on their sacreds, based on our moral code from the Bible, the way chivalry was from medieval times, the knights used to follow. And so in the book, Tess, the princess, is a 100% faithful and true believer. She reads her sacreds. She absolutely believes in the Great Descent. That's what you would call this sacrifice that the Fallman made. And she is faithful to that, even in the outworking of in her life in terms of ideas of sharing and prosperity and greed amongst the tiers. She would say that we should do what's right at the cost of ourselves in order to line up with the sacreds and what the All-Father would want. And so she is someone who has genuine faith, prays often, and lives it out morally in her life. And then Colt, who is our hero, he's fantastic. As a person, he's great. His father, though, died when he was 10, and he stopped going to his shrine, and he stopped going to Sabbath day lessons and those things when his dad died. And he ended up taking care of his mom, and has for the most part, figured everything else out for himself since that time. He kind of had to. And so he was drawn to the Bowman Code, loves the moral code of the King's Bowman, and that's why he's a King's Bowman, appreciates the sacreds, but doesn't actually believe that the Allfather created the Spire, and doesn't actually believe that the truth stones, because there's a magic component, that those are really real. So he would be somebody that appreciates faith and appreciates the morality of it, but doesn't actually live or believe that it's really real, if that makes sense. Until he meets Tess,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the trilogy goes on, and by the end of it, there's a heart change there for sure. So there's a redemptive story there, which I mean, I think that might be my favorite part, just watching him come to faith. And he already has everything he needs. So this is not, he doesn't hit rock bottom. It's not a story. It's a story of a very competent, exceptional person in his own right, who then, based on what he sees, is convinced that God or the Allfather is real, and then ends up putting his trust in him in major ways throughout the stories. So
Well, and I like. Don't get me wrong. I love it when someone is, you know, maybe they need to be, cut to nothing and have to, make that choice. Sure, but I also love it when someone. In some ways, I actually love it more because it feels more realistic in my brain, because most of the people that I know, this has been their life. Not all the people I know, but most. But you have a life, and you're living a life, and life is grand. You're competent, you have a successful career, or you have a nice family, or whatever the things you've got it all. Now, how do you get that person to see a
right,
need for Christ? When an author can do that, that just, to me, it's a
right,
harder sell. And so when an author does it, I'm
right.
like,
Well,
yes.
and that was the goal. I mean, my father is a wonderful, wonderful man, and he is, I would say, he's like an actual genuine atheist. He loves the Bible, appreciates Christianity, would tell you that if everyone lived according to what the Bible, God, Christ said, the world would be an entirely different place, and that Christians are really the only people that do altruistic things for no other, this is his thought, right, like for no ulterior motive, right? If we all lived like that, the
Yep.
world would be a different place. It's too bad that God isn't actually real, because all of that is how he would want to live. He like when my mom's a Christian, and so when she took us to church, he'd drive us, he'd supported us every step of the way with that, wanting us to learn the moral code of the Bible. And then when we got older, I think he expected, as we got older, that we would then stop believing that God was real, kind of like he did, kind of like you would of Santa Claus, right? And so then when he watched me
Yeah.
just love the Lord more and more, and I mean, I believe that God is real with every fiber of my being, and want to live my entire life just to glorify him, and to point others to Christ, and to share just like the mystery and the wonder and the miracle of the gospel. And so when he saw that, I think he thought, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have let to go to church. No, I'm joking. He's really, really supportive. And even to this day, we've had thousands, countless conversations about it. And I'm still praying. He's 87. And I'm still just praying for the Lord to change his heart. But it has to be something of the Lord. He's heard the gospel multiple times and he likes it. He knows the story of the Bible and he likes
Yeah.
it. He just, because of, I think he grew up, the time frame that he grew up, evolution was really, really embraced. And it was the heyday of science and evolution. And he just felt like those two things were mutually exclusive. He didn't think that you could believe in God and really be a scientist or believe in science. And so then he just had a problem. And so he took the one over the other, which is too bad, because I don't even think that is really a problem. It's just,
No. If anything, it feels to me like science proves the Bible more than evolution it ever could. So it's really funny. And there's so many great, I mean, amazing scientists who say, how can you reject a God when you see all this and you insert all this,
exactly.
and yet he's not alone. There are so many that's
Right.
where it gets hung
And so
up.
we're just praying,
Well, I will
holy,
add him to
his
my
name is,
prayer list here. We will just pray that this guy
yes, his
sees it
name's Dave.
all.
He's wonderful. I mean, I know it's so cheesy to say that he's just the best dad in the whole wide world. I love him to pieces. I love my mom too. I'm so thankful for both of them. And I've been praying for him since I was 4. I don't want to tell you how long that's been, but I've been praying for him since I accepted Christ, like since I came to faith at 4 and God saved me. I very quickly realized that he did not go to church with us, and asked him about it. And he told me straight up that he just didn't believe in God, that he thought it was all good, but he didn't believe in God. And at that second breath, was, well, Dad, I mean, you have to believe in God because X, Y, and Z. And so we've been having these conversations since I was 4, and I've been praying for him for a very long time. So if you added him to your prayer list, or if any of your listeners did, his name's Dave, that would just, honestly, that's my number one. That's who I wrote Colt after. And my dream comes true in the novel, where this wonderful person has a genuine encounter with faith and God, and then accepts it and then trusts. So yeah, I would love to see that happen for him.
Yep, it is on the list. I've already written it. We're going to pray for Dave and for eyeballs open, because that's important. And it's a hard, guys. It's a really hard thing for the family. So I don't want this to come off wrong, because it can really quickly go sideways. But there is also something exceptionally beautiful about a person who lives their whole life not as a child of God. And I'm just thinking about Dave here. I mean, guys, this man respects the Bible. He respects faith. He sees value in it, and he still doesn't believe. But there's something really beautiful where, it's almost the end of life, and suddenly that yielding, I've seen it happen. And I'm not talking deathbed here, I'm talking end of life, that yielding. There's something that is very, very, very different in the conversion and the subsequent faith life of a person who has rejected a whole life, not kind of half not known, but know the truth and rejected it. And then near the end, once they become a Christian, it's just different, and it's beautiful. And I want that for Jill.
I mean, that's been the prayer. It's funny, people ask me no matter where I am, and I'm so bad because I teach our Sunday school, like, I shouldn't admit this, but very often I'm teaching Sunday school. And of course we do prayer requests during that time. And I go around the class and I ask all the kids what their prayer request is. And then I put mine on, and I tell them, and I'm like, and guys, for me, and they're like, we know, for your dad. And if at our staff, if staff prayer request time comes up, it's him first. When that one's answered, then I'll start thinking of other things. Because of course, there's other things that we pray for. But if anyone were to ask me what is it that you would like me to pray for, it's for my dad's salvation. So, and praise God, my mom has faithfully loved the Lord, brought me to church, and he has been supportive, which I'm so, so thankful of. And so is she. So I never mention my mom very often, but she faithfully carried the load there. And I'm saved because of the Lord using her to lead me to Christ, and then to, guide and direct all those years on her own. And so I'm thankful for her.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. Oh boy. Okay. There are 3 books, but in this first one, we get to learn the world. We go to this thing. We have this shootout. We have her meeting this guy who has no faith, but a respect for faith. So we have Dave/Colt. And then there is this attack. Obviously, they're going to have to repel this attack somehow, or do something about this attack. We don't know what, but that's okay, because that's why we read the book, right? And then, but by the end, is it by the end of this book or by the end of this series that we see Colt coming to have
it would
his
be everything
faith
comes together in the 3rd book. So you have a meeting of these 2 exceptional people that are, they're initially just drawn to each other. And yet at the same time, she finds him infuriating and he finds her reckless. But all of that through the 1st book, they are a true match and partnership for each other. And through their friendship relationship, not friendship at times, depending, through their relationship, he is exposed time and time again to her genuine faith. And many things come to, I would say, a hopefully very satisfying conclusion by the end of the 3rd book. But by the end of the 1st book, so not for Colt, for sure. He is not saved by the end of the first book. He's going off to try and fix everything and still on his own. He's going to do that in his own strength on his own. And the big premise of the second book would be her trying to help him do that. It's called Heart of a Spy. And so that gives you kind of a clue. I don't know actually how much you say and don't say on podcasts to this end because I don't want to spoil anything. But it is called Heart of a Spy. And he does figure it's his responsibility to take on this problem all on his own. And of course, she's not going to have that. He needs her and she's going to help, like it or not. And of course, they picked up some really great friends. The Mist Raider. So in the back there on the cover, you see the lighter than air ship. That is the dancing girl, and that is a ship that belongs to Deacon, and that's Colt's childhood best friend. So they grew up very, very poor together, and they had promised to strike out. They were going to join the regulars, the army, and then, make a little money and then go make their fortune. And when Cole got recruited to the King's Bowman, he couldn't leave. He loved it so much. He wanted to serve his tier so much that he couldn't leave. And Deacon, his best friend, leaves and becomes a Mist Raider. So their futures couldn't have diverged any more dramatically, really. And so, but they need Deacon's help in order to stave off this invasion, and in order to fight back, they need Deacon's help. And so he's brought into the picture, and of course he meets Tess and has a very similar reaction to Colt. Like she's outstanding, and he falls for her as well. So then you've got the three of them, and they become, obviously they're really good friends, but so there's a dynamic there as well.
Okay. So when does
November.
book 2 come out?
Yeah, end of November would be the paperback, and I think the actual release date for the ebook would be December 15th.
Okay, I can wait.
It's funny, and it's so you feel embarrassed saying it, but so many people, once they've read it, the common comment has been, "I read it in a day and a half, and I cannot believe I have to wait till November to find out what happens." And so that has been so encouraging because I didn't even know if people were going to like it. So I'm just so thankful that that's the general usual comment is, "I wouldn't have read it now if I knew I had to wait till November." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So
yeah, well, I'm reading it now because I can't wait until November. Oh boy. Okay, all right. Now you said that you've had some good guys. We talked before we got on here. Actually, I talked our head off because I was trying to wake up. But you said you've had some really cool conversations with kids about the faith elements in here.
So lots of teens, tweens have read it. Lots of my friends have read it. So lots of adults, I would say from like 10 up till 87, if you're going to count my dad, have read it. And they're all drawn to different parts of it. And they, some like the action, and there's so much like political / military strategy intrigue. There's a romance. I think it's a little bit funny, you know what I mean? Like the pirates and stuff. But I have given it to some of my son's high school friends who are not saved. And they immediately, like when they've talked to me, same thing. I read it in 2 days, and I have to talk to you about the faithy part. And so there's been a recognition that there is something deeper, that there is this underlying worldview that would be pointing to Christ and to the gospel and to the Bible. And so I've been able to engage with lots of young people on that. And I mean, that honestly was the goal for writing the book. Yes. I wanted it to be something that pointed readers to Christ. Now, you're not going to find all the answers in there. The answers are in the Bible. But I would hope that if you read that, it would pull at some deep yearning. There would be some heartstrings that would just be tugged. And maybe if you're not saved, my hopeful reaction is that if you're saved, you're a young person, you would just be spurred on to self-sacrifice and to excellence and to perseverance. If you're not saved, my hope would be that your heart would ache for things that are deeper and to be a part of something more, which only can be found in Christ, right? Like these characters in the end, I mean, that's the conclusion that I draw through their lives. So I'm hoping that that's the effect that it has. That's why I wrote it.
Oh, I love it. It reminds me of the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And then you add on, but you can salt the oats. I feel like this book is salting the oats for the
Oh,
Bible.
I so appreciate that.
That's what I'm hearing here, and I think that is, I mean, when you've got kids coming to you going, I want to know the faithy bits, like that means something. If one person says that, you've done your job, but you've had multiple, and that is
Yes.
so cool. Ah, all right. Well, you're gonna have to come back and tell us about the next book. We want to know all about it, but I'm going to be selfish and make people wait because I have to wait. Yeah, Shatona has trouble. So please do that. But where do readers go to find out more about you, this book, the upcoming books, when they're coming, when the pre-orders are up, and
So
all
my
that good
website
stuff?
is jilkoller.com. I am a homeschool mom. So I have 4 kids and I homeschool. And I wrote this really to be a read aloud you could do as a family that would be clean. I have a spread. My kids, I have a 17-year-old son who is just a military buff. He's a World War II savant. He really, we had lots of walks where we talked about the strategy of the military component so that it'd be authentic, which was really helpful. And then I have a 13-year-old son, an 11-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son. And so I read to them every night for, I would say, even when my youngest was a real baby, so 9 years now, I've been reading them a chapter a night before bed. We don't do screens at all during the week. And so I had run out of books to be able to read to my kids that would catch them all. If the boys liked it, she didn't for whatever reason, and vice versa. So if she really, really resonated with it, then they found it boring or whatever it was, whatever the complaint was. And so I wanted to write something that was action packed from start to finish, but also had really deeply developed characters. And then I threw in a romance, which seems to have really resonated with people, I'm hoping. So that's why I did all of that. And then I wrote a novel study guide to go with it, that if you buy the book, you can just
Ooh.
download off my website the novel study guide. And then I've got resources, homeschool resources. So if you go to jilkoller.com, you will find the book. I mean, that's front and center. And then you'll find the free novel study guides. I've got a junior and a senior. And then you'll find all my homeschooling resources that I just give away for free. So that's what you'll find there. And I'm hoping that that's a blessing to families. I'm hoping that this becomes a book that you could then do a read aloud with your kids or give to your tweens or teens, and it's clean and it's, championing good messages. And then for pre-orders, I would just say I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm at Jil.Koller, and Jil is spelt with one L. I hope that's helpful because it's not really supposed to be, but it is. So at Jil.Koller, then you would find all of my pre-order information and when my launch would be starting and all that kind of stuff. But I would look for it at the beginning of November. There'll be lots of buzz.
So excited. So excited. Okay. All right. See, my finger has been hovering on the buy now, but I'm terrified because I just keep doing this thing where I buy multiple copies, which I think actually I need to buy multiple copies, but I want to send it directly to Clark instead of get it here and then me have to mail it separately. That seems silly. So I like one, Shatona, just wait. You've only got a couple more minutes. You can do this. But anyway, it claims that it will be here on Saturday if I
Well, do
order
you know
now.
what?
So I'm like, score. I've got 9 hours to get it here
So
by
here's what
Saturday.
I do. If I want to give this away to anybody, sometimes I've done a contest and I have ordered it through Amazon to their address. So it ships to them in 2 days rather than shipping to me in
Yep.
a day. And I have found,
Yep.
thank you, Amazon. Like that's just remarkably helpful because I've done a few contests and promotions and then I've got winners who are in the States or they're across country in Canada. And I just use Amazon to ship it to them instead of ship it to me. And then I don't have to make it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just, sometimes when I'm talking with an author, I'll put it in the cart, and then as we're talking, I'll be like, oh, I got to put that in the cart. And then by the time I get done and I go to the cart, I don't look to see that I have 4 of them in there, and I hit click, and so now I've got 4 coming, and I'm like, oh, well, okay. So I've stopped myself from doing that, and so I'm sitting here going, if I do buy now, it won't happen. It won't happen. And I'm like, no, not doing that. I'm going to wait. I'll get mine and then I will send it to Clark once I have his address. But I don't have his address. So I
Oh,
need to,
that's
do
funny.
all the things. Yeah, Shatona has troubles. Okay. She has troubles. Uh, I just want the buck. Okay. Deep breath. Life is good. Jill, thank you so much for writing this book, for sharing the story of your father. As I'm reading the book, I know I'm going to be praying for him when I'm with Colt because we know this now. I mean that's pretty devious of you. I'm just
Thank
saying,
you.
but
Honestly, my heart is leaping for joy right now. The thought that he would be on your mind and that you would remember to pray for him. I really believe that prayer works. And God hears us and God moves when we pray. He loves his children. And so thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, that is a massive blessing to me, and that means the world. So thank you.
It's going to be cool. So guys, when we're reading Cult, everyone, let's pray for Dave. This is important. I'm just saying. But thank you for coming and chatting, and for thanking you in advance, hoping that means that you'll do that. You're coming back and telling us about book 2
I would
and
be
all the good
so
things
honored to
there.
come back and talk to you about it, and I just hope people like it. If anyone sends me a message, I just got an email from somebody where they bought the book. Do we have time that I can tell you a lame little story? It'll take 1 minute. A lady
Mm-hmm.
bought the book
Oh yeah,
at
yeah,
a
yeah.
local, not really local, but pseudo local homeschool bookstore, curriculum bookstore. She bought it for her daughter for her year next year. And they cracked it open that night at her parents, she told me, because they visited the parents to be able to go to this huge bookstore, which is about an hour and a half from me. And so they started reading it aloud that night, which sounds familiar, right? It's like a nerdy thing that our family does. And
Right.
so her grandparents, like the grandparents of the girl who the book was for, were in the room. And so the mom's reading it, and they read so many more chapters than they expected. And then the next night, that's what they did. They didn't watch a movie. They ended up reading more chapters. And then I get an email that said, we ended up going home from our vacation and we finished the book reading aloud in a few days. But my parents have made me record the chapter by chapter. I have to send them voice messages with the recording because they want to hear what happens in the rest of the book and they want me to read it to them. And when I just wept, tears of joy.
Yes,
I was
that's
so happy.
cool.
And I emailed her and said the audiobook is presently being produced. It's halfway done almost right now, so that should release in a few months. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. But yes.
I'm so happy to hear about an audiobook. I wasn't going to ask. I was going to be good. And I didn't have to
Yeah.
ask because you told me anyway. Anyway, so I was like, score, audio, swipe. But I just like, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything is just glorious. Okay, audiobook. This is so cool. Anyway, okay, guys, I'm going to say have a good day. Go read this good book. Just and pray for Dave, and just wait, and she'll be back, and she'll tell us what's going to happen with Colt and Deacon and Tess in the next one. We'll hear from her again, and I will chat with you guys
Thank you
next
so
time.
much, Shatona.